thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
Representative democracy in USA, we elect legislators, that's how laws are made. 435 ramps in Congress means 435 districts among us. But how do we decide who represents who? We draw lines on a map, that's what we do. District population should be roughly the same, so every vote counts in the very same way. Keep communities together so every voice is heard. Since populations move, shift, shrink, and expand, we get some data every census, then we draw them again. So politicians are accountable to every last woman and man.
Look at all this private money changing hands to change these redistricting plans. We have to wonder what special interest state legislators have in mind when they draw the lines. Come on!
Cracking and cracking, kidnapping.
Are listening to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and Andy and I are just out here doing our part, trying to combine culture and political education in every little 30-second clip we can do. I am really glad to be joined in this hour at the top to be joined by Rebecca Carruthers, President and CEO of the Fair Election Center. Madam President, congratulations on the new-ish position that you now find yourself in. I've always appreciated having you on, and especially this is all a little bit complicated. So thank you for coming back and joining me.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the well wishes.
I think that we could say that this is probably one of the most hostile moments in modern history for voting rights, for free and fair elections, for fair representation, for all of the things. But before we get into this attempt by Republicans to use the Texas special legislative session to sort of attempt this mid-decade redistricting process, right, which is another way that this administration is trying to consolidate power. Will you just level set for a second for listeners and explain kind of what it means when we're saying a mid-decade redistricting process? What is that, and what's the problem with that?
Absolutely. Before I get there, could I just frame it out
Sure.
just slightly?
Yeah.
Okay. So, last year how every single person heard democracy is under attack?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the messaging.
Yes.
And now we're seeing the data from last year showing that really didn't move voters. They were just like, democracy under attack, and that's not going to change how I am going to vote or not going to vote.
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking about that. And I think the reason why that message did not resonate with voters last year is because we didn't explain what that meant.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Because when most people think about democracy, they think about what's happening in the status quo in America.
Mm-hmm.
If you are looking at democracies around the world, I don't know that we would even get a C letter grade with how we do our democracy. So in essence, we were telling voters last year, hey, come out and support the status quo. And they're like, but the status quo isn't working for everyday people. So why should we be motivated to support a system that's not responsive in the way that it should be responsive to us?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So now we have redistricting. It's something that we talk about every 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, okay, so there's a census, and then now we are drawing up new districts, and that's going to determine how resources and monies are allocated at the local level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Great. Now, what happens is after you have that every 10-year census, And then in that next legislative session, you have the districts drawn up. Then in that, say for us, in 2022, most of the federal maps across the country should have been solid. They should have been done. And these are the maps going through the 2030 federal elections, right?
Right.
But what's happening in a state like Texas is Texas decided, oh, no. We don't like the current maps. So we're now going to redistrict, and we're going to change it. So going into the 2026 election cycle, the map's going to look different. But the other issue is that many Latino groups and then the Texas chapter of the NAACP filed a lawsuit after Texas drew their map. The reason why in Texas, got a bunch of white people, a bunch of Latinos, a bunch of black folks.
Right.
It's also the state that has more black folks by number than any other state in the country.
Yes.
So when you look at the difference between white folks and Latinos, they're about neck and neck. They have about the same numbers. But when you look at the 37 congressional seats, you see that at least 23 of them are solidly white. And then you see there's only 7 majority Latino districts.
Right.
That doesn't make sense if we're just doing the math.
Right.
Because every congressional seat is supposed to have the same apportionment, have the same number of people within that congressional seat.
Right. So Texas is already gerrymandered in a way that is not representative or proportional.
No. So now they're like, oh, well, there's racial gerrymandering. So what we're hearing is some of the Republicans say, oh, there's racial gerrymandering, so we need to redraw the seats.
Right.
But the way they're proposing to redraw the seats will further eliminate Latino and black seats. Congressional seats.
Yeah. I think that's this sort of like, okay, let's hold up, right, and let's do more. Let's do more of the thing that's going to reduce people's political power. Even before we're supposed to, right, is kind of what we're facing in probably not just Texas. So I want to get into this a little bit more when we come forward about what this means, about what the potential impact is going to be, et cetera. So stay with us. Rebecca and I are going to get into this conversation about what is going on in Texas, but also what it means for all of us broadly. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's been said that when someone you love has Parkinson's, you have Parkinson's.
The Parkinson's Foundation knows that the disease doesn't just affect the diagnosed. It affects everyone who supports and helps care for them.
If you have questions, the Parkinson's Foundation has answers.
We can help you understand the disease
and give you tips for living a better life.
Find your answers at parkinson.org or call 1-800-473-4636. The Parkinson's Foundation. Better lives together.
Small businesses are the heart of America. But you don't have to go it alone. As the nation's largest nonprofit resource of expert business mentoring, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses for free. Get the connections, education, and guidance you need with SCORE. We're ready to help. Find a mentor today at score.org.
Some things can steal your sunshine.
Ugh, I just got my hair done.
Sorry, the cooler's broken. Anyone see my flip-flops? Anyone?
But COVID-19 can steal a lot more.
I just took a COVID test. Ugh.
Prescription medications for COVID exist. If you test positive this summer, ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit PfizerForAll.com/COVID-19 to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
There's nothing like when you get that part from eBay and it just fits. Yeah, the first time. So you can do less of this and get right back to more of this. At eBay, you'll find all the parts you need, guaranteed to fit, at prices you'll love. Sounds good, doesn't it? eBay, things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to the Black Pack, and we are continuing our conversation with Rebecca Carruthers, President and CEO of the Fair Election Center, about the Texas legislature's attempting a mid-decade redrawing of the congressional map. So, Rebecca, this is not just we want to tweak some things, right? Let's look at, like in a fair way, let's look at what's happening with representation in our state, and and maybe just make some minor adjustments. What are the implications of this, right? What are the implications for Black voters? What are the implications for Black representation? And what is Texas say? I mean, I think pretty outright and openly saying, I think, what they're trying to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only has Governor Abbott showed his hand, but so has the White House. Mm-hmm. They've made it clear that if Republicans nationally want to retain the majority in the House, mm-hmm. that they're going to have to do some gerrymandering between now and 2026. Otherwise, based upon all of the prognostics, it doesn't appear that Republicans will be able to maintain their majority.
Right.
And mind you, they have a very slim majority.
That's right.
Now, people hear that all the time. So what does that mean? One of the things is when you look at different committees, as different business is happening in the House, normally when Congress is this close and split, but still this close, normally they would have the same. They would have almost the same number of Republicans and Democrats on particular committees. Mm-hmm. Just the majority party. This time the Republicans, which is have one extra person. Instead, you're seeing committees like 8-4,
right?
As if it was Republicans are up by 20 members. In the House. The reason why this matters is as we're seeing different legislation, or as an example, when you saw there were enough Democrats, enough Republicans who wanted to vote to release the Epstein files,
right.
You saw Speaker Mike Johnson say, you know what, right. You all will have 6 weeks of vacation.
Right.
Go home
here's
now.
Some extra vacation. We're not going to talk about this.
Or when you see the big, ugly bill that we saw, which has a lot of devastating cuts and impacts that's going to disproportionately affect Black communities. Mind you, some of those major cuts won't happen until after November 2026 next year. Very
right.
Convenient.
Mm-hmm.
When you actually have fair representation, then there's a little bit more back and forth. There's more conversation. You're not going to just have in the middle of the night a vote is called.
Right.
And so this is not about Republican versus Democrat. It's about how do we want Congress to function? Right. Do we actually want it to function well, or do we want it to be extreme partisanship? So for Black communities, if Texas is doing this, guess what Missouri just indicated? And then the White House amplified through their bully puppet. Missouri said, hey, guess what? We're going to do this in Missouri. And you know whose seat they're attacking? Emmanuel Cleaver.
Right, of course.
CBC member, mm-hmm. Former CBC chair, Kansas City.
Right.
And so now they're like, hey, we can eliminate another Black seat.
Right.
And now Ohio is talking about it.
Right. Right. And so we both have the sort of, attempt to dilute Black political power, but also erasing Black political representation, because the same would be true in Texas, right? So as the Texas legislature talks about redistricting, they're talking about expanding the seats for Republicans, and the seats that they would be taking are in fact seats that are held by members of the Congressional Black Caucus, and apparently also in Missouri and also in Ohio. That's, I think, when we talk about what the implications are here, this isn't about just drawing some lines, right?
No, so why should people care about CBC seats disappearing? Mm-hmm. Because right now, the Congressional Black Caucus is the largest group that caucuses with the Democratic Party. So now imagine if Republicans do this redistricting, we lose these CBC seats. Let's say Democrats are able to squeak out and win the House, flip the chamber, win the House. This weakens the CBC, right? Because now we're going to have less members, right. And so now when we have a Voting Rights Act that's pretty much decimated, right? And because of the Voting Rights Act, it's the reason why we're able to have a Congressional Black Caucus. Because of the ability of having minority majority seats, right? And so now without those protections, this is attacking Black political power in this country. And so I know some folks, especially after last cycle, are like, Black people can't just talk about, the Democratic Party or being beholden to the Democratic Party. I'm not even talking about this from a partisan lens of Democrats must be in power, Republicans should not be in power. But I'm talking about the impact with Black voters. Because one of the things that I was thinking about, I am in the first generation of, if I'm looking across my first cousins, where almost all of us were born with full voting rights. Right. As Black folks in this country. Right. And my eldest cousin in my first cousin grouping is 64. Right. Yeah. The VRA is only 60 years old. So she was born without having full voting rights in this country. Yeah. Yeah. So that's something that people should think about, is that they're literally going after our rights.
Yeah. And we're approaching the 60th anniversary, right, of the Voting Rights Act in 2 weeks. And we are, we've already seen the efforts to take out key sections of the Voting Rights Act, and there's some anticipation that we may see more harm, right, in the next Supreme Court session, right, in terms of what we're seeing, and you'll have to help me because I'm gonna get this wrong, but the Eighth Circuit, right, the case that essentially says that individuals cannot sue if they feel like they've been discriminated against, if their voting rights, right, have been violated and that they've been discriminated against, which is essentially the ways in which we've been able to, right,
private plaintiffs,
right,
yes,
yeah.
So the concept is called private plaintiffs. Yeah. So like, for instance, if the NAACP or the Legal Defense Fund or MALDEF, which is the Hispanic Legal Defense Fund, if they see okay, there's a cause for action, so now we are going to sue. They are private plaintiffs, meaning that they're not a government entity. Right. So now with this ruling, it says the only recourse is if the Department of Justice says, you know what, we should do something about it. But guess what? In the Civil Rights Division, in the Voting Rights section, I think there's only 2 attorneys left.
That's just crazy.
They got rid of everybody. Yeah. So do you really expect this administration's Department of Justice 2 attorneys to actually focus on making sure there isn't racial and ethnic discrimination in voting in this country?
Right. Well, that's when we think, again, this just the idea of you have on the one hand the sort of dismantling of the Voting Rights Act, and then you have this other piece, which is essentially, and we hear this all the time, it is politicians attempting to pick their own voters, right, as opposed to the voters picking the people that they want to represent them, and that is what we're seeing in Texas and in other places. I mean, again, I just want to highlight, right? Like there are real implications for what the governor of Texas is talking about doing, and as he's being pushed and pressured. Although I'm pretty sure it didn't take that much to push or pressure him by the president of the United States. Are there other things that people should understand about the real life implications of what is being attempted right now?
Sure. So there's been in the news, people are whispering like, okay, maybe Gavin Newsom can figure out how to do I don't want to call it new redistricting, but redistricting in California, because that's a threat, because California has more congressional seats than any other state.
Anybody, yeah.
While I understand the, tit for tat, if this happens on this side, then the other side should respond. Going back to, how it started off with the framing, is we have to think about this in terms of democracy. If, a lot of people are saying that we're in fascism or we're in authoritarianism. What I see is there's a consolidation of power in a way that the founders did not set out for, that consolidation of power, but that power should be dispersed in this country.
Right.
So even like the concept of federalism, and I can't believe I'm actually making the argument there. Because for folks who don't know, that's where you get all those states' rights people, those people who are still mad that Sherman marched across the South, and who are saying the South will rise again. So it's ironic.
Yes.
It's definitely a very ironic moment. But people should be concerned at the erosion, especially of our Bill of Rights. Because most legal and academic scholars would tell you the First Amendment is the most precious amendment that we have in this country. And so freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, all those things, your right to vote, the constitutional protection to the right to vote, is that First Amendment. And this is what we're seeing. We're seeing ideology sweep across this country that's trying to erode those basic rights. And when that First Amendment falls, that lets you know we're not just in the beginning throes of authoritarianism. We're in the pits of hell of authoritarianism.
We're in it. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what you all are doing, how Fair Election Center is approaching this, and also a little bit about what folks can do, right? Because I think one of the things that's always very chilling is that these things seem very big, they seem very hard, and it's not clear what we as individuals or organizations can do about it. So how are you all thinking about engaging around this issue, and what can folks be doing?
So we don't focus on redistricting, but what we focus on is to make sure that the mechanics of the elections are free and fair. And so to that extent, we make sure that those who are registering to vote are able to actually cast their ballot. Because we've seen certain states now try to figure out how they can diminish the rolls. Some of them are calling it list maintenance, but really it's voter purging. And so we've been fighting back to make sure that people aren't showing up on election day trying to vote and being told, oh, well, you didn't use it, so you lost it.
Right.
So that's which
is happening right now in places like Georgia. Yes. Yeah.
500,000 people being kicked off the rolls because they haven't voted recently. Like, I'm sorry, the First Amendment applies whether I exercise my right to the First Amendment or not. It's still there. Just like due process, whether I exercise my right to due process is still my right. Being here in U.S. soil, by being an American citizen. But also if you're on the soil of the United States, citizen or not, you still have the right to due process. And so one of the biggest things that people can do now is make sure you figure out reliable sources of information.
Yeah.
So listening to Black Pac is going to be a very reliable source of information, and also how it impacts Black communities. You have to be able to identify it, because as we get closer towards the 2026 election cycle, there's going to be a very predictable rise in disinformation.
Right. Yes.
And that's where it is paid paid manipulation of information targeting specific folks.
Yeah.
And in 2024, Black folks were targeted.
Yep.
In 2020, Black folks were targeted.
Yep.
In 2016, Black folks are targeted.
Yep.
Why? Because we show up and we vote. We vote for our community's conscience. You know, we vote for the future that we want. We vote for our grandparents, our parents, our kids, our family. That's how we show up in community.
That's right.
We exercise that right to vote. So if we are no longer showing up, it's going to be even much worse than what we're experiencing now. Like, we literally have to flood our local polling locations next year.
Mm-hmm.
We have to show up in such great numbers, because if you live, like, all is not lost, because if you live in a state that has statewide elections, guess what? You can't gerrymander a statewide election.
Right, yeah.
So if there's a statewide Supreme Court race, if there's a statewide governor's race, a U.S. Senate race, they cannot gerrymander that.
That's right.
And so you still have to exercise your right to vote.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I appreciate that, both in terms of, you know, the work that you all do to make sure that our votes get cast and counted, and also just saying, you know, to folks the importance of what they can do. One of which is if everyone should be checking their voter registration status, so that you don't get caught off guard and not be able to vote. And that includes in elections that are happening this year. So, Rebecca, I want to thank you again for coming on, breaking this all down for us, helping us understand what this means and the fight that we're in, quite frankly, because it is a fight, and it's important that we all figure out which ways that we can engage. So when we come forward, we're going to stay on this topic. We're going to be joined by Russia Chavez Cardenas, the Deputy Director of California Common Cause, to talk about what this might look like and what it might mean for California. Stay with us. This is the Black Pack.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Maryland Governor Wes Moore is suing President Trump after being denied FEMA aid for May's floods despite meeting the criteria. He says the denial appears political as GOP-led states got help while Maryland did not. Black actor Michael Ward is facing serious charges in the UK, including 2 counts of rape and 3 counts of sexual assault. British authorities say the alleged offenses involve one woman and took place in January 2023. Ward, a 27-year-old Jamaican-born actor known for roles in Top Boy, Small Axe, and Eddington, was charged by the Metropolitan Police and is scheduled to appear in court on August 28th. And the FCC has signed off on Skydance Media's $8 billion acquisition of Paramount Global. FCC Chair Brendan Carr noted that CBS would see significant changes and confirmed that Skydance agreed to not implement any DEI initiatives. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Slowing in Burbank for the 5 southbound leaving Olive. You're on the brakes and stretches all the way to the 605. Also in Burbank, that 134 eastbound. We're seeing delays from Buena Vista as you continue to Glendale Avenue in Glendale. Pasadena, 210 eastbound, backing up from just about Mountain as you're on the brakes ahead and stretches all the way to Foothill Boulevard. And it's tough in Norwalk, northbound side of the 605 from the 105 freeway all the way to the 10.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. Put USC coach Lincoln Riley at the top of the list for football coaches facing the most pressure this season. USC Nation is expecting a lot from Riley. This is Riley's 4th season at USC, but he has failed to get the Trojans into the college football playoffs. USC hasn't made the playoffs since the NCAA implemented a playoff system in 2014. The Trojans were 6-6 last season, including a 4-5 finish in their first year in the Big Ten Conference. They were 7-5 in 2023. Both of those seasons resulted in low-level bowl wins. The Trojans have only one major bowl victory in the past last 16 years, and they have not won a national championship since 2004. USC Nation was expecting Riley to restore the great tradition of USC football when he was hired in 2022 for $10 million a year. So far, Riley has not done that. He may have only one more year to get it done. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. Thank you, thank you.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're inside the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
And we are continuing our conversation about the attempts at redistricting that we are seeing across the country, and are so glad to be joined by Russia Chavez Cardenas, the Deputy Director of California Common Cause. Thank you, Russia, for joining us. I appreciate you adding to this conversation.
Thank you for having me, Adrianne. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course. So we were talking earlier with Rebecca Carruthers from the Fair Election Center about the Texas special legislative session called specifically to apparently disenfranchise people, which is, of course, what they would like to do. We've seen comments from around the country in response to what's happening there. We've seen governors from blue states like Illinois and also our governor here in California, saying, well, we all can do this, right? And if we're gonna, use this as a tool to determine what the outcome of the midterm elections are going to be, then some Democrats anyway, seem to be saying, we'll fight fire with fire. But help me understand it, because I think a lot of people, I find it interesting how many people around the country, look to Gavin Newsom to sort of be the fighter, right, for the Democratic Party. But it's not quite so easy to do here. Is that right? What would that mean in California? This idea of redistricting in a state that has, a independent redistricting commission. What are the challenges, and what would that mean for communities across the state?
Sure, I can answer that. So, essentially, first, the governor does not have full and sweeping legal authority to take a strike to the California Constitution and say we're going to move the districting and the redistricting process out of the hands of an independent redistricting commission in the state of California and give it to politicians, give it back to politicians so that they can decide what the districts look like. So back in 2008, California voters passed a proposition that, and it's embedded in the California state constitution, that says that the redistricting process has to happen by an independent group of people. So what that looks like is regular, everyday citizens getting selected, going in through an application process, starting off actually with a lottery process that's administered by the California state auditor, and then getting vetted through that process. Individuals who are skilled in this craft, who are committed to community, who are knowledgeable about civics, who understand map making and line drawing process, are the people who are selected to redraw these maps. Because what was happening previously, and what happens, as we know, across the country,
right,
individuals, particularly people of power, will always draw a map to ensure that they have power.
Right.
When you get people who do not have power, they're going to center it on representation. So we're talking about a difference between centering on power versus representation. So in the independent redistricting model, those individuals, or those commissioners, what we call them in the field, those commissioners are looking at other factors. They're looking at ways to keep communities whole and not bifurcate communities.
Right.
And community can be defined by language. It could be defined by economic or socioeconomic status. It could be defined by these resources such as churches or synagogues or temples in our area. That's what makes us a community. And they take all of that information into account, and then they decide, okay, this is what this community looks like, and this is how we'll draw the map. What we're talking about here is, I think you guys mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, was elected officials choosing who they want as voters.
Right.
And those are two completely different things. And the thing about gerrymandering, and that we know historically, is that it always and consistently negatively impacts Black and brown communities, and namely poor communities, and communities who suffer economically. And what Governor Newsom said earlier today in his press conference is, we have to fight fire with fire. And I'm going to round this whole thing out. And so he says, we have to fight fire with fire. And we would say, no, you need to fight fire with water. You need to be as unforgiving as water is, and move around those rocks and just move and persist. Because what he's suggesting is, as a retaliatory impact. So if, say, we do this mid-year redistricting in Texas, and he's saying, well, because California has the most congressional elector, the seat that we tee up during the election, we'll gerrymander California in response. So what we'll do is we'll gerrymander California to ensure that we have a way to keep the Republican Party at bay. And like Rebecca said earlier, this is not for the Black and brown community, this is a less of a partisan issue, and I'm not speaking to this from a partisan factor. This is a people representation factor. When you do that, even here in California, Black and brown communities will suffer.
So this is this is like an ongoing debate, right, that has risen up in all the group chats. Right? Like I must be in 20 group chats, and in 20 group chats, there is this debate, right? Is the answer to political or racial gerrymandering more political and racial gerrymandering, right? This idea of fighting fire with fire. And on the other hand, you have folks who are saying, that part, I guess, right, which is we have to fight fire with fire. Like Democrats have to stand up. There's only, like if this is what they're going to do, we have to be able to use the same tactics, et cetera. But it is really as much as it is a political debate that is out in the public, perhaps, or maybe moving out into the public, it is what individual, just regular folks are trying to understand and grapple with. And I think what you're saying is that more political gerrymandering is not the answer here.
Yeah, so Republican threats to gerrymander a red state, they're real, but the answer is not to mimic their tactics. Trump is baiting Democrats into abandoning the moral and legal high ground, tricking them into undermining the very communities they proclaim to protect. So by responding in kind with fire, Democrats risk to permanently damage their relationship with Black and brown voters.
Yeah.
What we need to be thinking of instead is what can all parties be doing to think about representation. And a question that I've been grappling with a lot right now as we think about this is, if a party has to gerrymander in order to stay in power, my question is, are they really focused on representation? And what part of this are we talking about the people? And what part of this are we talking about ensuring that we're representing the people that were that chose us? Are we representing their interests? Because right now what we're hearing is a conversation about tribalism. I've got an R on my badge, you've got a D on your badge, and we've got to make sure that the D's can fight the R's and the R's can fight the D's. And what part of this conversation are we talking about people? And what is the well-being for people?
Well, I think so clearly, when we talk about representation, clearly the Republicans have made clear for decades that they do not care. And in terms of representation, particularly in Texas, they will wipe out the members, the entire delegation, or almost the entire delegation of the Congressional Black Caucus that exists in Texas. So they clearly do not care, right? They do not care if Black folks are being represented or have representatives from their state. And I suspect that part of this is about just trying to get at Representative Jasmine Crockett, but that's another story. So when we come forward, I want to continue this conversation with you, Russia, just about what does this mean? What can we do? And then also just the role that Common Cause is playing and how you all are thinking, the work that you all have coming down the pipeline. So when we come forward, we'll get into those questions. Stay with us. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
JP Morgan Chase offers tips for the local business owners in 2025. Small business landscape is ever changing, and the Los Angeles market is no exception. A startup or legacy business, revisiting your mission statement and recalibrating offerings can renew opportunities for growth and innovations. Programs like Chase for Business Coaching for Impact gives entrepreneurs access to expert guidance, helping you streamline operations, strategize your growth, and navigate complex challenges. Businesses with a clear sense of purpose can navigate any challenge effectively, but also build stronger customer loyalty. Visit chase.com/coaching for impact for more information. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting truly great candidates for your roles? It seems impossible to find them, but they have to be out there somewhere, right? Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go, and that place is ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter, you're missing out. So see what it's like when the impossible is easy. When you go to ziprecruiter.com/free right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. Once again, that's ziprecruiter.com/free. ziprecruiter.com/free. Never miss out on great candidates with ZipRecruiter.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cow Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580. Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to the Black Pack, and we are wrapping up our conversation about Republican efforts to redistrict in the middle of the decade when they should not be doing that. And we are talking to the Deputy Director of the California Common Cause. So I realized that we jumped right in, and I didn't give you a moment to talk about Common Cause, California Common Cause's work, and sort of what you all are thinking and what's coming down the pipeline. So I want to make sure I give you a chance to just talk about that, and because obviously this is this conversation is important for the country, obviously, about whether or not states just start going rogue, right? But it's also obviously the implications for what happens here in California is also really critical. So I want to just give you a chance to talk about Common Cause.
Sure. So California Common Cause is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We focus on pro-democracy reforms. Those reforms include money in politics, getting money out of politics, thinking about special interest money, and ensuring that more regular everyday folks have more financial influence over their politicians instead of big corporations and private special interests. Mm-hmm. The other one is media and democracy. That's one of our other areas, and we're focused on local and ethnic media, ensuring that we have a strong media to ensure that we have an informed citizenry. Another one of our buckets is voting rights and redistricting, which we've been talking about. We also have a focus area on transparency, ethics, and accountability to ensure that elected officials are held accountable for their actions and for how they represent us. So that's kind of like the universe of issues that we work on. Specifically in California, California Common Cause was the premier architect of the independent redistricting commission model that we see here in the state of California that is being threatened to be undone in some way, shape, or form. We are also one of the co-anchors and lead campaign supporters and developers of the independent redistricting commissions that were just passed in Los Angeles for Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, and LA Unified School District.
Yeah. And so how will you all then, I mean, I think some of this is about, and this is maybe in some ways kind of the hard part, right, is making sure that folks understand what's happening, right, what all of this means and what the potential implications are. So how do you all, two questions maybe for you. So how do you all go about doing that, making sure that voters here in the state understand what the implications of what our governor is talking about, right, is or are. And then how do you suggest that folks who want, if they, want to get more information, either so that they can understand it better, or they can figure out what they can do, right, to get engaged, regardless of how they, see the issue. How those two things, how do you all go about making sure folks are informed, and then also what can people do? And I think really just how do people reach out to you all, right, to make sure that they're staying on top of it?
Sure. So how we do it is having conversations with folks like you and coming on to talk to folks in community. We also are present on social media. We will do external campaigns. We'll have coalition partners. Sometimes we'll do community teach-ins depending on the issue. So we'll go into a community if it's like on AI myth and disinformation. Sometimes we'll go deep down into San Bernardino County or deep into Orange County or wherever we're called to talk about these issues in community so we can train trainers.
Yeah, actually, can I just, I know I asked you to answer the question and now I'm stopping you because I do feel like I feel like there is going to be a lot of mis and disinformation around this issue. And so so I'm glad to hear that you all are doing that, and I'm just wondering if you all will be doing more of that, because this could be incredibly complicated for people to understand.
It is, and so typically what we'll do around these types of issues is, just as I said, we will communicate with our members, and so for folks who want to get involved or learn more about Common Cause, you can go to our website, commoncause.org. And you can sign up to get to be a member, what we call a member, but it's really just information based. And so what you'll get there is consistent, regular information from our organization about what's happening in all of the pro-democracy issues that we follow, how you can get engaged. It could be from signing petitions to calling an elected official, sending a letter of support or opposition on pro-democracy issues or issues that would tear away at the fabric of our democracy. So those are the ways that we do it, and those are the ways that folks can get involved. And then a broader, because California Common Cause is a part of a federated, I know you guys were talking about federations earlier, like a federated part of Common Cause universe. And so we have 30 chapters throughout the nation. And then we have a larger DC office who will often run postcard programs or other programs. We run election protection programs every election cycle where we train nonpartisan volunteers to observe polls and to ensure that the election administration process is being administered effectively in and around in the state of California. So those are ways that we do it, and that's kind of how we show up in this work. On this issue, particularly related to redistricting, we will show up educating folks about what gerrymandering is, what it looks like, why we would lean towards having independent redistricting commissions, explaining the fabric of what they are, explaining why they really center community and have been the bedrock for good, strong districts here in the state of California. In our last redistricting cycle that we had, it was passed and we had 0 legal challenges, which is very hard. When you hear about other states, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, their maps are consistently and constantly being challenged in court because they were gerrymandered in some way. When handed over to an independent commission, not only does evidence and scholastic research show that independent redistricting commissions are more fair and more transparent and are better for voters, but experientially here in California, we have experienced that on the ground in real life.
So let me just make sure that we say this one more time. So folks who want to get involved can reach out to you all at commoncause.org, both to sign up for the information that you all are putting out, or if they are interested in any other the areas of work. So commoncause.org. And then I think, you're sort of getting at this. I'm just wondering how you all think this is going to play out. Obviously Texas is going to do what Texas does. Ohio will do what Ohio does. Missouri will do what Missouri does. Illinois will do what Illinois does. But how do you think this all is going to play out here in California?
I really can't say, but I can tell you this. And so we have some couple options that are pathways that are forward. Because California voters are the folks who decided to put this on the Constitution, only California voters can decide to undo it, right? And so the only way to get an independent commission not drawing the lines and to have a political commission drawing the lines is it would have to go back to the voters. So the California voters have to decide that. So it would look like the governor would call a special election. He would have to frame what that new ballot measure could look like. And it could look like a lot of things, right? And so it could look like, we would do one-time gerrymandering or allow for a political commission, or it could be in perpetuity, which I don't think any of us would want to see. It could be only for mid-year. Like, they could craft that ballot measure language in a number of ways, to which I think they're really analyzing that. I think the governor mentioned that so much so in his press statement earlier that they made. So it would have to go back to the voters. The voters then would have to decide whether or not they want to undo the independent redistricting commission that we have. Polling shows in California, the California voters aren't for it. I don't know what new polling shows, but previously when we polled and asked voters whether they want an independent body or a political body drawing their district lines in the state, voters overwhelmingly lean towards an independent body. And so if you're thinking about what Black and brown communities can do now to stay engaged and to stay informed about this issue is, and I know everyone hears this time and time again, but it's really call your local, state, and federal officials. And I'm really going to key in on local because a lot of folks are like, politics is not for me. I don't listen to I don't get involved. And I say, do you have potholes on your road? Do you care about your streetlights? Do you care about your education system? Then you need to be talking to your local elected officials. You also need to be telling your local elected officials, like, there's a conversation being had about where I'm going to sit on some map. If I'm moved out of my community, I lose power. I lose. I'm going to be put in another community that's not my community. I'll look like that gerrymandered, salamandred map, but that's not who I am.
And that's not what we want.
And that won't give me power to tell you I need this pothole fixed.
Well, it sounds like
these lights were prepared.
Yeah, and this is just not as cut and dry as it's being made out to seem. There's not just some waving of the wand, and I think that's the thing that's most important. Is it seems like the wand is going to be waved, and the governor will be able to do whatever he wants to do, but there's actually a process that has to be gone through, and so people should be clear about that. So I want to thank you so much for talking about what this means for California, because we could talk about what it means nationally all day long, and California is not every other state, and so it's just really important that we talk about what is real and what is not real. So I appreciate you so much for joining us, and hopefully as this conversation moves on, you'll come back and talk to us more. So commoncause.org for folks who want to get more information or get involved. Again, thanks for joining, and I want to say thank you to all of the listeners today and always for joining me on a Friday afternoon when you could be anywhere doing anything else. I appreciate you for joining me here at Black Pack. We'll be back next Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Enjoy your weekend.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Dozens of Texas Democrats, including Legislative Black Caucus Chair Barbara Gervin Hawkins, have left the state to protest a GOP redistricting plan.
I'm insulted, I'm concerned, and I'm wondering, why must we do this?
They say lawmakers should focus on